Welcome back from that abrupt break. Well, President Biden, who is hosting leaders from across the African continent in Washington, D.C., starting today for the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit. One of the agenda for this meeting, as concerns our shared values to better, is to reinforce commitment to democracy. Now, I'm sure democracy does not deny a people freedom to self-determination, self-defense, or right to live, because as it is, the three of ours who were indicted in the U.S. have not done anything graver than these. Well, there's a whole other side to this summit, and it is really interesting, and we look forward to it getting the full briefings of that. Well, last week, as regards the indictment of three of ours, the council reiterates that Amazonian forces do not kidnap people for ransom, and note further that there is generalized insecurity in the territory of Amazonia due essentially to the uncontrolled, disorderly professional misconduct sponsored private militias, commonly referred to as Amba boys. Finally, the council reminded La République du Cameroun particularly and the entire world that self-defense is a universal right, recognized and protected under international law, and that is a fact. Today, the mouthpiece of the interim government, led by Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, Dr. Martin Mungwa, will be talking further on that with a focus on Amazonia on trial, the end to La République du Cameroun's drama of shedding crocodile tears. While we expect as the Secretary of State for Communications and IT to give depth to the aforementioned topic, we anticipate the President of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, us on the U.S. Africa Summit tomorrow, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Amba time. In a state of diverse opinions, clarity from the focus leader, Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, is critically important. We have important stories in and out of Amazonia, a few of which we've already brought to you. So we'll just get straight into the reports.
All right, by the way, we want to apologize for that break in transmission. We sincerely hope that we wouldn't go off again. But before that, let's get the news in detail.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Amazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Amazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, so violence won't solve the anglophone conflict, says U.S. Ambassador, while civil rights groups as well as the international community has condemned violence as a way out to the 6 years and counting conflict in southern Cameroon. Despite all the different voices clamoring for a genuine dialogue with different stakeholders, La République du Cameroun, with her ruler, dictator Paul Biya, have remained glued to the use of arms. Since 2017, that the people of southern Cameroon's Amazonia engaged in diverse self-defense mechanisms against La République du Cameroun colonial forces following the war declared on the people of southern Cameroon by Paul Biya.
Well, the colonial forces of Paul Biya have carried out uncountable fruitless military operations to wipe out the Amazonian liberation fighters, yet their authorities are not pressing for genuine negotiations to end the conflict, nor their supreme commander Paul Biya giving peace talks a consideration. We wonder if Paul Biya is ignorant of the fact that you cannot win against a war against the people who are determined, and has he also sold his conscience to pleasure seeing the youths die?
Well, the U.S. ambassador to Cameroon has said the violence would solve the Anglophone conflict. U.S. ambassador to Cameroon, Christopher John Lamora, had said that using soldiers in the crisis-hit Anglophone region will not solve the conflict, which has been rocking the region for over 5 years and counting. The ambassador was speaking to state media on the 12th day of December 2022 and used the opportunity to call all the colonial government authorities to initiate a real and honest dialogue. Well, in his words, he says, "I personally do not believe in violence, and the La République du Cameroun government should not stop should stop using soldiers to instigate more violence. Dialogue is best, and the United States of America is here to help stop all the killings and burning down of schools.
Well, the objective of La République du Cameroon to destroy all the standing institutions in Cameroon is not strange to anyone, even to the United States ambassadors. Any individual or groups of persons who deliberately burn down schools, making young people to stay at home and stop the killings. He added. Well, he went on to urge President of La République du Cameroon, Biya, to go for dialogue once he returned from the USA, where he's attending the USA-Africa Summit. Quote, I watch all the violent videos and see all the pictures, and sometimes I get emotional. The crisis has gone on for more than 4 years now, with too many lives lost already and innocent children dropping out of school. Families are rendered homeless, people are scared to move freely, with others vacating their hometowns to strange places. We try using our World Food Program to feed the affected areas, especially and the internally displaced, and we recently shipped more food items, but no one should enjoy instigating war. This was from John Lamora explaining.
Well, the socio-political crisis, which gradually became known as the anglophone crisis, has been going on in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia since 2016 and moved into a war in 2017. Ever since then, there has been very little efforts made by the colonial La République du Cameroon government authorities to put an end to the grievances of the people of this region. So far, official figures show that more than 3,000 people have been killed on both fighting factions, and over 700,000 have been internally and externally displaced.
Well, moving on to our next story for tonight. The secret meeting that has been exposed, well, it is no wonder. The fear of Sako and the interim government demonstrated as a Cameroon government official delegation accompanying Paul Biya to the USA reportedly holds secret meetings with some Ambazonian sellouts who also recently held secret meetings in Canada to auction the Ambazonian people's liberation struggle.
Well, it is said that he who runs away from an imminent fight will fight a greater one tomorrow. Why should La République du Cameroon leave the substance to chase the shadow is a question we are asking. Ambazonians must wise up and know that following blackleg sellouts and merchants who call themselves leaders have auctioned their country will not take them anywhere. Maggie Kilo, Dr. Fotem Neba, Mr. Mbajon Akuro, Elvis Kometer, Sisiku Neil Ibine, Christopher Anu, Reverend Christiana Asong, Ayabacho, Iya Marianta, Honorable Weber, Mark Barater. Well, Ambazonians must therefore rise as one man under the Sako-led IG to seize homeland from the fangs of these greedy wolves in sheepskin. Lightweights in the struggle who have shown their limitation as agents of La République du Cameroon.
Well, Undaunted has learnt with a heavy heart, even though not surprising, that a 5-man delegation of senior government officials of La République du Cameroon who are accompanying Paul Biya to the USA, headed by Minister of Defense Betty Assomo, Minister of External Relations Lejeune Mbela, and Minister in charge of Special Missions at the Presidency, Victor Array Mengot, were received by La République du Cameroon's ambassador to the United States, Henry Etundi Esomba. Washington, D.C. at his official residence at 9 p.m. local time on December 11th, 2022, a day after the arrival of La République du Cameroon's head of state, Paul Biya, in the United States. A delegation of Anglophone leaders were earlier ferried to ambassador's residence 30 minutes prior to government's delegation.
Well, Undaunted gathered that the Anglophone delegation was led by Maggie Kilo, consortium leaders Dr. Fontem, Mr. Mbajon Akuro, and SCNC leader Elvis Kometa, Sisiko Ibine, Christopher Arno, Reverend Christina Asong, and 4 others. Well, the meeting was strictly on invitation and off camera, and no phones were allowed. The delegation came to deliver what they tagged as a special thank you message from Paul Biya to their Anglophone Ambazonian leaders for honoring the secret agreement reached during their Canadian secret talks to put an end to Ambazonian struggle and bring back normalcy in the Northwest and Southwest regions.
The Cameroon government officials told the anglophone Ambazonian delegation that the head of state is aware of the former separatist leaders' comment in respect of the Canadian Conference secret resolution to give peace a chance and that the government was ready to progressively fulfill all the promises made to them within the framework of the Canadian secret talks if they succeed to end the crisis in Southwest and Southwest regions for peace to return to a one and indivisible Cameroon. This is so that the government can organize upcoming elections in both regions and full implementation of the special status. Following all the people all the time, but not with the never again generation, led by the fire-eating, no-nonsense, resilient and dreaded Dr. Sako. The government is doing all to ensure those who don't want peace, unity and dialogue organized by the government's dialogue shall be dealt with accordingly.
Well, the delegation urged the Anglophone Amazonia delegation to convince more fighters, especially in Boye and Ngokentoujer, to drop their weapons and join any rehabilitation center of their choice, and that their demands to free all prisoners, especially their leader, Ayuk Tabi, have been tabled to the head of state, and he's progressively going to act on that since he has pledged their allegiance to work for a one and indivisible Cameroon. Well, the Cameroon delegation boosted to the Anglophone Ambazonia delegation that the presence of the head of state in Washington was proof that the government is working behind closed doors with various countries to bring back normalcy to the Northwest and Southwest region.
Well, they also said that 2 weeks ago, Cameroon's ambassador to Germany met other Anglophone Ambazonian leaders in Europe, such as Ayaba Cho, Marianta, Honorable Weber, Mark Barretta, who accepted to work with the government behind the scenes to end the crisis so the head of state can embark on the 2035 emergence plan. The secret meeting ended with the Cameroon government delegation promising other meetings and an eventual private direct meeting between President Paul Biya and the Anglophone Ambazonian delegation, depending on his schedule.
Well, Undaunted underscores that all these men are mere rhetoric that bona fide Ambazonians have listened to for over 60 years now, and that after 60 years from ban to the Grand National Dialogue, Canada 1, 2, and 3rd, enough is enough for La Republic to Cameroon because they can rule all the people all the time. While moving on to the next story, Munga says federation is the right option for the strike-turn Cameroon. What do you think about that? Well, Munga has said that federation is the right option for the strike-turn Cameroon. Now, at the stage of the struggle, what can this bring to your mind? You think it's madness. Well, if it's not madness, then you can think that it is witchcraft. Well, the Federalist granted an interview to the bi-weekly The Post of Monday, December 12, 2022, during which he carried his madness again about federation being a right option. Well, Undaunted recently said Munga and others were redundant and therefore irrelevant as far as the Ambazonian liberation quest was concerned. Now, since Munga persists peddling against the waves, Undaunted without fear or favor challenges him with the following questions.
Well, the questions are: what happened to the first federation? Why was the Federal Republic of Cameroon abolished? What will make federation work today? And when Munga read the Bamenda Proclamation at the All Anglophones Conference AAC2 in 1994, the shed tears about a peace-loving people, bruised, annihilated, marginalized, subjugated, killed, maimed, were they crocodile tears he shed? And in June 1995, Solomon Tandeng Munan, Simon Munga, Ekontang Elad, John J.N. Foncha, Joe Litumbe, etc., crossed the Mungo Bridge with UN flag after a trip to NY to make case for an independent Southern Cameroon state. Why are you dishonest, Munga? Did Munga ever learn the adage that if you are beaten by a snake, you run away from a millipede? Ambazonian has reason but to fall no more.
All right, let's look at the Bamenda Proclamation. In the light of the foregoing, the Anglophone people of the Cameroon meeting at Bamenda in the second All Anglophone Conference, AAC2, solemnly adopt and issues the following proclamation. Now it says, should the government either persist in its refusal to engage in meaningful constitutional talks or fail to engage in such talks within a reasonable time, The Anglophone Council shall inform the Anglophone people by all suitable means. It shall thereupon proclaim the revival of the independence and sovereignty of the Anglophone territory of the Southern Cameroons and take all measures necessary to secure, defend, and preserve the independence, sovereignty, and integrity of the said territory. Now, the seventh one says, following the proclamation of the revival of the independence and sovereignty of Southern Cameroons as provided for herabove, the Anglophone Council shall, without having to convene any session of the All Anglophone Crisis, transform itself into the Southern Cameroons Constituent Assembly for the purpose of drafting, debating, and adopting a constitution for the independent and sovereign state of Southern Cameroons. Now, this was read by Dr. Simon Munzu in Bamenda with tears flowing from his eyes.
Well, in June 1995, Solomon Tandeng Munang, Simon Munzu, Ekotang Elad, J.N. Foncha, Njoli Tumbe, etc., crossed the Munga Bridge with UN flag after trips to New York to make case for an independent Southern Cameroon state. Now, to emphasize, during the All Anglophone Conference, AAC 1 and 2, Boya Bamenda, we had two secretaries, Dr. Munzu from the Southwest and Professor Ayangwe Carson from the Northwest. As if God knew the confusion ahead with time and the hearts of the two secretaries, late statesmen Muna and Foncha did their best to explain how they got themselves entangled in a failed union that was tentative or had a trial period. Now, quoting, I remember late statesman Dr. Funcha shedding tears, and when he was held hostage for selling West Cameroon, late Dr. Funcha's reaction in tears caused the writing of a memorandum to the UN for separation, copy of memorandum in the hands of the secretaries, who today are showing their true colors of betrayal since they can't bite the fingers that fed them.
Well, during the ACC 1 and 2, no Francophone attended the meeting. As such, if our two secretaries had made the BA government to know the outcome of the memorandum, the nasty situation today couldn't have caused the killings of West Cameroonians. Well, looking at the picture below, that's the picture that's on the screen, you would find Munzu Elad, Late Pan, Joe, Letpa, Abam, and the New Life, John Frundi, and many others. Well, I don't blame the BS administration for the ongoing confusion, but Munzu, Elad Ayangwe, John Frundi for not holding on the truth and blessings late Foncha and Muna gave us to continue. Well, and after the break, we'll bring you the editorial.
Yesterday, in our editorial, we looked at Diplomacy Masterclass Made Simple, identifying and choosing a negotiator, the SLP or CDN2 Ottawa, by Bridget Muyang Fielding. Continuing with that, in our editorial of today, we look at another aspect of it, mediating the Ambazonian crisis, sweet-led process. Well, from the Ambazonian perspective, the choice of a mediator should be informed by the conditions already mentioned before and more neutrality and acceptability to Yaoundé. While the French are not an option, Yaoundé will not readily accept the Americans either. The British, on the other hand, are an interested party to the matter because their dereliction of duty led to the present imbroglio and so cannot be trusted to play mediator by La République du Cameroun in spite of their increasing business interest in the Cameroons. Well, usually smaller countries with much vouched for neutrality in world affairs because of their lesser influence and geopolitical interests come in highly recommended for the job. That's account for the prominent positions held by Switzerland and the Scandinavian countries in the resolution of conflicts around the world. Swiss neutrality puts her in the best position. Geneva is the world's most important diplomatic hub after New York on account for her long-standing neutrality. Most United Nations agencies are headquartered here. Switzerland, that is only joined the United Nations in 2002, becoming the organization's 190th member. Well, this notwithstanding, her conduct in world affairs still makes her government any country's best bet for mediation. It is true that Swiss banks have opened their safes to African dictators, but Switzerland is the banking capital of the world, banking for the East and the West, for both saints and villains alike. That is neutrality. That is a reputation that should not be lost on anyone. On the crisis at hand, Geneva was Ambazonian's best bet to get La République du Cameroun early to the table of negotiations. As some already indicated, Switzerland is second home to La République du Cameroun's Paul Biya after Mvomeka. It was therefore more likely for Yaoundé to accept a Swiss offer than an American offer. The important thing is to get an internationally supervised mediation process running. Those Ambazonian diplomatic experts who oppose the Swiss-led process have caused enormous delay and enabled Yaoundé greatly. Their expertise did not permit them to assess the worth and implication of U.S. Senate Resolution 684, throwing America's might, weight, and participation in the process. Their expertise did not permit them to understand that the outcome of an international mediation process does not depend on the whims and caprices of the parties and mediating government. This was already made abundantly clear by the several endorsements the Swiss-led process garnered United Nations observers and enforcers, the EU observers pressure group, the United States government's observers participants, U.S. Senate Resolution 684, Canada, financiers, observers, the United Kingdom, interested party, observers, African Union, observers, enforcers. Well, few mediation efforts in the world have received such unanimity. Now, equal status during negotiations. Before the law, there is no lesser party. All are equal and should be seen to be equal. Political scientists in both Amazonia and the world are agreed that the Amazonian quest for independence restoration falls under the ambit of international law. These are also agreed that direct talks between the two belligerents will domesticate the crisis, making it an internal matter of Cameroon. This is what cast serious doubts over the several rounds of meetings between opponents of the Swiss-led process and low-level agents of La République du Cameroun. Now, raising the bar. While Brigitte Moyang might rightly or wrongly be perceived as partisan, the truth is that President Sako had raised the bar high enough for engagement with Yaoundé, stating emphatically that the two parties will have to meet as equals. Nobody can fault President Sako's position to hold exploratory talks, talks about talks, preliminary talks in the presence of the mediator, as the outcome of such discussions will be more binding in this event than in what is going on in Ottawa at the moment. While playing Yaoundé's game, does anybody really doubt that in pulling away from the Swiss-led process and choosing with his own preferred Ambazonian leaders, Yaoundé has decided to talk with what it considers to be the weak links in the struggle in order to have its way? The following are points every Ambazonian, including babies, grave on their hearts and until the Ottawa drama returns to Canada SLP. 1. That Ottawa is CDN Toronto retreat of frontline leaders part 2, enlarged to achieve their win-win outcome objective with Yaoundé. 2. That it is the CDN Toronto announced win-win resolution that encouraged Yaoundé to pull out of the Swiss-led process. And 3. That those speaking for Amazonia in Canada opposed the Swiss-led process on the following grounds. A, that Yaoundé had not committed itself in writing, that they needed to see a written commitment. At the end, Yaoundé wrote to pull out of the process it was not committed to. B, that they are holding exploratory talks about talks without that Yaoundé has committed to negotiations, unlike in the previous process. The cart was conveniently, shamelessly put before the horse in this case. And see, they said those who were scurrying to Geneva were going to eat Swiss cheese and take par diems, were given by the Canadians to corrupt. The same people are shamelessly attending talks about talks financed by La Republic du Cameroon, who takes care of the logistics and per diems. These Ambazonians have preferred toxic cold money from Yaoundé to unconditional Canadian dollars. John Amba is denouncing the Swiss-led process, said it was initiated by President Sako and so could not be trusted. He claimed the Swiss are La République du Cameroun in disguise, that the process was La République du Cameroun controlled, yet La République du Cameroun boycotted its own process, pulled out of it. These people obviously are more comfortable with a Paul Biya initiative than a Sako initiative. So much for commitment, honesty, and expertise. We'll see that any La République du Cameroun approved preferred Ambazonian leadership is never to be trusted. Whereas President Sako insisted from a position of strength, giving Ambazonian equal standing with Yaoundé, that all preliminary discussions, talks about talks, will take place under the auspices of the mediator as an integral part of the process, so that what is agreed upon is conclusive and enforceable. Whatever the parties agreed to be in Ottawa will not be binding and enforceable. Note that those taking part in the Ottawa talks have no authority over the territory. How will they enforce whatever conditions they may agree with La République du Cameroun on the territory? They don't have the power to call off ghost towns, ask the ARF to stop fighting. Worse still, they cannot force Yaoundé to pull out its troops from the territory. On the other hand, all confidence-building measures agreed upon, witnessed and signed by the mediator in the presence of international observers would be binding and enforceable by the international community, as these agreements would have the same binding force as treaties and covenants in international law. The Ottawa talks, like the band's boycott of the Swiss-led process, only helps Yaoundé to delay and waste time, thereby prolonging the crisis, while Ottawa can accuse Yaoundé of refusing to negotiate. They are already talking with Ambazonian leaders. There you have it, the most logical points when it comes to the SLP highlighted. Well, at the end of Diplomacy Masterclass Made Simple, identifying and choosing a negotiator, the SLP, Swiss-led process, or CDN to Ottawa, we had Bridget Moyang Fielding talk further on Canada's Swiss-led process too, the prospects, and giving her final thoughts on this very critical, important topic of discussion. Well, that will definitely bring to you in our next editorial. But until then, we've come to the end of this part of Diplomacy Masterclass Made Simple, and also the end of our editorial for today. Now, if you find this interesting and want more of such beautiful articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambatv.com for more. Subscribe, become a club member, and a part of this winning strategy. Find our payment details on your screen. I am Star Smart reporting for Undaunted ABC Amba TV.
All right. You're welcome back. Thank you so much, Star Smart, for that report. All right, and moving on, we have the State of the Liberation with Secretary Martin Munga, PhD, F.Asce. He is a fellow of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Well, today he will be focusing on Ambazonia on trial, the end to Cameroon's drama of shedding crocodile tears. Let's hand the mic over to Dr. Mungwa. All right, but before we bring Dr. Mungwa, let's give you this announcement that will definitely interest you. Well, tomorrow, the President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, will make an address to the U.S. African Summit. And so I'm sure that you all would want to know what the address is all about and participate in it as well. All right. With that being said, let's have Dr. Mungwa.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for that announcement. I believe the president wrote some things which you should have communicated it for those at the home front who are not able to read whatever he said on the social media. So tomorrow at 9 p.m. Ambazonia time, we will have the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia making an address to the nation, but this address is destined to go to the US Africa Summit hosted by Joe Biden. Amazonians, I'd like to indicate that we have been facing some attack on ABC, particularly on Facebook. Since 2 or 3 days ago, we started posting about Bia's coming to America. And a lot of Amazonians have called to indicate that they're finding challenges either to comment, nor to share, nor to like whatever we are doing. So I want to go through this really quickly and then to take you into the office of the Secretary of State for Communications and IT. The president just highlighted on his wall a moment ago. He says, "My fellow Amazonians, our nation is an independent state by every available right and deserves to be recognized. My hope is to impress stakeholders one more time with this deep-seated conviction of every bona fide Southern Cameroonian Ambazonian as I make an address destined to the US Africa Summit 2022. But before then, permit me to say that it is shocking to see how some of those whom we called comrades a few days ago will unfortunately be intertwined into the Franco-Cameroon Bulu Beti mafia to an incomprehensible extent and to a measure of unthinkable betrayal of our collective desire of emancipation and true freedom. If history teaches anything, it teaches that simple-minded appeasement or wishful thinking about our adversaries is folly. It means the betrayal of our movement and the victims of the carnage ongoing in our homeland. Meanwhile, as La République du Cameroon desperately infiltrates our resilient framework with an escalating rage and in a bid to dialogue with a weak Ambazonia, I would hasten to announce that this interim government has built a formidable instrument that can stand the storms. Our nation's architecture of self-determination will not be dismantled under my leadership. Let it be known, I am not ignorant of the vices and consequences of any selfish move we make today. History will not forgive us if all we do or if all we can do is to have backdoor meetings with the oppressor at a time when we have lost more than 40,000 of our beloved people in a senseless war. And by the same token, sabotage genuine dialogue and all negotiations that should be only in the presence of a third party. This is the plain truth. A freeze now would be a very dangerous fraud, for that is merely the illusion of peace. The reality is that we must find peace through strength, and I'm unapologetic with the standards of this interim government, determined to accept nothing less. See you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Amba time. God bless you, and may God bless the Federal Republic of Amazonia. It's no news to some of you what's happening on the social media, meetings, late night meetings. It's unfortunate how some did not learn from the late night meetings of the Douala chiefs, the consequences of that late night meeting. Late night meetings, evil meetings. When we said that some were compromised, we were nicknamed. We were called conspiracy theorists. When we said that they have been paid by Yaoundé, some said we are bringing conspiracy theories and destroying the struggle. If there's anything else, today is your answer. So the so-called gathering to march in Washington, D.C. was a cover-up to keep you blindfolded, and so that the real activity of mortgaging our freedom and our homeland will be taking place at the back. Unfortunately for them, our intelligence has it that they have failed in Canada, and they are thinking that they can go into further negotiations on our behalf. You've heard the president. I can't wait for tomorrow's dialogue. But without any waste of your time, Dr. Martin Mungwa comes today again unapologetically to talk to us about Ambazonia on trial, the end to La République du Cameroon's drama of shedding crocodile tears. I don't want to waste any minute. I can't wait to listen to him. Let us transition into his office right away.
Good day, Ambazonians. Welcome to today's presentation. The topic of our presentation today is Ambazonia on trial, the end to La République du Cameroon's drama of shedding crocodile tears. Dear Ambazonians and members of the international community, once again, on behalf of your interim government, we would like to extend a 21-gun salute to our great Ambazonia restoration forces in the home front, who are putting their lives on the line to protect Ambazonians from La République du Cameroon's state-orchestrated terrorism. It is now clear to all that the French proxy La République du Cameroon is hell-bent to overcome the sovereign vote at the United Nations on April the 21st, 1961, to grant independence to the territory and the people of southern Cameroons. La République du Cameroon and her protege, France, had voted against the independence of southern Cameroons at that 1961 meeting. Now, this pair seeks to revoke a democratic vote, recolonize our country using cheap political tricks, administrative measures, and emotional appeals instead of reasoning. But for elevated protests since 2017, La République du Cameroon has come dangerously close to succeeding, replacing the Ambazonian colonial inheritance from Great Britain with French, all accomplished without debate or consent, but by decrees, blood and iron coming out of the presidency, and incredible denials in public. The motivation is access to limited deposits of blood petroleum found in both Ambazonia and La République du Cameroon. However, La République du Cameroon is using her 80% population advantage, which is bonded in a controversial pact with France to confiscate all good things Ambazonia, to share 50-50 with France. According to records, France took away $4 billion from La République du Cameroon, including 50% of sales receipts on Ambazonian crude petroleum in 2021 alone. This is 50% of the revenue from Cameroonian exports in 2021. President Paul Biya is currently in Washington, D.C. to attend the 2022 USA-Africa Summit on the invitation of the federal government of the United States. We wish him a pleasant stay in the historic capital of a free and powerful anglophone country. The message of the interim government to him and his enormous delegation is simple. We call on Mr. Biya to abide by the free counsel of the bipartisan U.S. Senate Resolution 684. We ask Mr. Biya to start a legitimate process that is free of preconditions in which to mediate the conflicts between his country, La République du Cameroon, and Ambazonia, both former component states of the failed Cameroon Federation between 1961 and 1984. We of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia are resolutely committed on a course of self-determination for our country, ourselves, and our progeny, and desire to live as good neighbors with La République du Cameroon. We of Ambazonia are fighting for recognition of our sovereign nation, which was constrained by the UN General Assembly in 1961 into a new failed federation with La République du Cameroon under France. The failure is well documented as root causes, which is a topic for future discussions. Not least is the fact that France never granted full independence to La République du Cameroon, a fact fraudulently concealed by the conspirators from the United Nations General Assembly in 1961. To all Ambazonians in the diaspora and sympathizers everywhere who continue to support the suffering people of Ambazonia at home and abroad, we of the interim government will never forget to honor our brave people in these challenging times. We have reached the crossroads in this revolution that requires the collective will of all Ambazonians to challenge the international conspiracy that has kept the people of British Southern Cameroons in captivity and servitude for 61 years. Dear Ambazonians, we observe that La République du Cameroon is using the recent indictment of 3 of her compatriots in the United States to portray herself as the victim of criminal acts perpetrated by Ambazonian citizens. This is far from the truth. The systematic and state-sponsored violence, atrocities, and injustice meted to the people of Ambazonia under the direct supervision of the French Cameroon presidency since independence will soon be brought to daylight to the world through the American court system and henceforth stop the evil La République shedding crocodile tears. Fellow Ambazonians, it is simply incorrect for the Inspector General in the Ministry of External Relations, Mr. John Billy Echo, to claim that the indictments are an American internal matter when Yaoundé has been busy working offices of a bankrupted U.S. lawyer to issue non-stop misleading testimonies to the U.S. Department of Justice on behalf of the regime in Yaoundé. Let the evidence lead us to logical outcomes. At this juncture, we would like to chronicle Ambazonia's work to recolonization by La République du Cameroon under France. This bad work has stifled our educational, political, technological, social, and cultural advancement for 61 years. The people of Ambazonia firmly deny to France and anyone else that they can be reduced to shambles simply to French Cameroon. That's between 1960 to today, or Haiti between 1827 and 1947, with La République du Cameroon as a French proxy and enabler to expropriations from Amba land. Fellow Amazonians, let us look at the chronology starting in 1959. The key event that year was the December 26, 1959, when secret accords were signed between Charles de Gaulle for France and Amadou Ahidjo for La République du Cameroon. This parasitic treaty was, ladies and gentlemen, the outcome of decision by France to handpick Amadou Ahidjo as leader of ARCAM, Assemblée Camerounaise, over Jean-André Mbida. There is no evidence that the secret treaty was known to Django Foncha or any British Southern Cameroon's leader in Boya by October 1961. The Fumban Constitutional Conference in July 1961 did not mention this treaty. History teaches us that in French style, the former ARCAM leader, Jean-André Mbida, ended up as the first political prisoner of La République du Cameroon as directed by France. Published trade data of La République du Cameroon suggest France has taken from the failed Cameroon Federation over $100 billion between 1964 and 2021. 100 billion is a huge sum of resources. We are talking of over 650 million CFA, which France has funneled out of Cameroon. This money, $100 billion, is more than enough to install quality drinking water systems in all 8 regions of La République du Cameroon, install water treatment plants in all 8 regions of La République du Cameroon, build modern expressways, not paths as recently published, connecting all 8 regional capitals of La République du Cameroon, and have enough surplus in a foundation to run regional hospitals for 100 years. France has not provided any goods or services to the failed Cameroon Federation to justify this massive bleeding from a third world country. It must be stated for the record that the people of Ambazonia respect the choices of La République du Cameroon, but resolutely reject all designs by La République du Cameroon on Ambazonia as a former federal state of the failed Cameroon Federation. All colonial assignments of provinces, regions, and divisions have been replaced by local government areas and counties managed by locally elected leaders of the sovereign Ambazonian people. Moving on to the 21st of April 1961, the 995th meeting of the United Nations General Assembly granted independence to our country, which at the time had been well prepared for independence by 3 successive British governments, following mandates in the United Nations Trusteeship Agreement signed by the United Kingdom on the 13th of December 1946. The United Kingdom was mandated in that 1946 agreement to prepare our country, Ambazonia, for independence. May we throw your attention as well to paragraphs 182 to 184 of the 995th meeting of the United Nations General Assembly in April 1961. The record is about a session that was presided over by France, where a francophone proposal by Guinea to simply unify the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon to create Mr. Paul Biya's État unitaire was rejected by the entire meeting. This dismissal is in the written proceedings of the April 1961 meeting. In 1966, Ahidjo put an end to competitive democracy to create a single party in contradiction to the agreement in Fumban. Not surprisingly, the de facto federal constitution of the 1961 Federal Republic of, of Cameroon was abrogated on 20th May 1972, ostensibly to destroy the regional autonomy of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, driven by a desire to control at 100% a relatively limited deposit of petroleum and a maritime border with the Nigerian Federation. Ambazonian crude oil currently supplies 33% of the demand by France. Let it be stated here for the record that the Federal Republic of Ambazonia is not opposed to selling crude petroleum to France, but it shall be priced at the full market value and the proceeds channeled to Boya. In 1980, the visiting French president, President Francois Mitterrand, tells Biya that there is no place for any anglophone to be president of Cameroon. Any uprising, he advised, should be suppressed violently by the military. In 1984, Mr. Biya unilaterally seceded La République du Cameroon from the Cameroon Federation without the popular consent of the people. Mr. Biya, however, has been attempting to abuse administrative measures to reduce the smaller federal state to mere regions of French-controlled La République du Cameroon. By renaming the country officially as La République du Cameroon by decree in 1984 to realign with the December 1959 cooperation treaty with France, La République du Cameroon effectively seceded from the 1961 Federation, but has retained troops and administration in our country, now a colony of La République du Cameroon called the NOSO. In return for daring, France seemingly has granted a life presidency to dictator Biya at the cost of Ambazonia blood and freedom. This dictatorship is seemingly shaping to change into a father-to-son succession in the pseudo-kingdom of La République du Cameroon. In 1986, the CIA of the United States government in secret communications warns Biya that the marginalization of Anglophones would lead to political uprising. Mr. Biya did not heed the advice. In October 16th, 1992, Mr. Biya lost the first democratic elections to the SDF and refused to relinquish power with full support from the French presidency and French multinationals exploiting oil and gas in Ambazonia. No election has ever been won by Mr. Biya in Cameroon due to systemic fraud. In September 17th, 2017, La République du Cameroon security forces gunned down more than 300 peaceful protesters holding peace plans using helicopter gunships purchased with proceeds of Ambazonian crude oil. This seminal event justified the restoration of Amazonian sovereignty statehood on 1st October 2017. Going back to the current indictment of Amazonian nationalists in the United States, our popular movement has received motions of support from Amazonians and well-wishers from around the world. From the abundance of evidence, the American justice shall unravel the root causes of Ambazonians' plight under La République du Cameroon and the colonial dragnet of France. Ambazonians' plight to self-determination under the United Nations Charter and the history of Ambazonia within the context of the genocidal war with La République du Cameroon in a failed Cameroon Federation. The danger arising from the annexation and subjugation of Ambazonians is considerable. Our people are resolute even inside the lion's den, and the political leadership in Amazonia and abroad remains focused on liberation from Francophone tyranny under France. We, Ambazonians, shall never retreat. We shall never surrender until we reach Boya. Short live the revolution, long live the Ambazonian people and the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Over to you, Paddy.
That was elaborate. I would say amazing. It's food for the soul for Amazonians that are watching. We will go straight away into the segment of questions that are coming from the newsroom. And before I hand the mic back to the ladies so they can bring to you their questions, I would ask Ambazonians that are watching on Facebook, do us due diligence and share it within groups in Facebook. As you can see, we are under attack, and the purpose for that attack is simply because we are the only ones that are talking or saying what Yaoundé doesn't want to listen to. So why I will try to see if we can continue the production and take some questions from the public. Let me transition into the newsroom with Dr. Mungwa so that the ladies can present the questions they had today. Stay tuned.
All right, nice to have you again here, Dr. Mungwa. Thank you so much, sir, for coming today again. Now, in our news today, one of our major news, striking to me, is Munzu. Now, it happened that in the Bamenda Proclamation, he played a very vital role, and he made he gave the excerpt himself rather, one of which is he said, should the government either persist in its refusal to engage in meaningful constitutional talks or fail to engage in such talks within a reasonable time, the Anglophone Council shall inform the Anglophone people by all suitable means. He says it shall thereupon proclaim the revival of the independence and sovereignty of the Anglophone territory of the Southern Cameroons and take all measures necessary to secure, defend, and preserve the independence, sovereignty, and integrity of the said territory. Now, it was shocking to us to find in the Daily where he's talking about federation, where Ambazonians, Southern Cameroons, should imbibe and embrace federation. With all of this, what do you have to say with this today, sir?
Well, thank you, ladies. I don't think there is much to say about that. That statement simply tells you the character of that person, Dr. Munzo. And it also tells you what money does to some people. That's exactly what we've been trying to avoid in this revolution, where people are giving money, people are giving positions in government or international organizations in exchange for their soul. And that's exactly what has happened to Munzo. I happen to have been a colleague of Munzo at the university. So I remember that statement very well. He used to be one of our idols, being somebody who apparently graduated from a very prestigious British university. We felt that this is the type of people we put in leadership positions in order to rescue our democracy. But what happened? He was handpicked by Bia, given an international job, and he suddenly changed his language. Today he's talking about federation. This is somebody who was for independence from the time I knew him, you know, a few decades back. I mean, we can all see what money can do to people. It's not the intelligence that matters. It's not the intelligence. It's the will to defend your people. And that's exactly what the current interim government is doing. If it was a matter of making money, I'm sure La République du Cameroun would have been able to promise Dr. Sako even the national budget. But you cannot do that. You cannot do that. And it applies to every member of the government right now. And that's why La République du Cameroun is in trouble. They are so ashamed because they don't know how they can handle us. They believe that money can buy anything. And that has been the modus operandi ever since this war of sovereignty started. They believe that they could sort of bribe us and let us abandon the cause. With the blood of our fellow countrymen shed by the terrorists of La République du Cameroun, this war, we must use it as a means to have complete and total independence from these savages. We cannot live with these people in the same country. It has been proven over 61 years that we don't have the same mindset, we don't have the same respect for human rights, and it is time for them to go where they belong and let's stay in our country and build it. And I can promise you that with a government like that of Dr. Sako, we will be able to achieve 30 years of progress within 5 years. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Martin. Well, for the past few weeks, we've been dealing with the indictment of the three of ours, and even your topic today talks about it, Ambazonia on trial. Well, we've seen the positive sides to this, and I think it's basically just the positive sides, except people who indicted these three of ours are indicted them on very opposite reasons. They indicted them on causes that are not true. So, you talked about the end to La République du Cameroun's drama of crocodile tears. Could you elaborate why you think so and why that is going to be?
Yes, it is actually the end to the drama of shedding La République shedding crocodile tears. Why do I say that? Um, Now that the case is in the American courts, remember last week I talked about the eagle at full flight. You don't shoot it down. What I meant was it was a metaphor to talk about the American justice system. Now it is at full flight, and we have to wait until it lands. And when it lands, we'll understand what is happening. You know the eagle bird, it flies very high and sees very wide. So, very far and wide. So, this is a wonderful occasion for the American system to sift through the pieces of flawed evidence that La République du Cameroun presented to it. And we will know from the abundance of the evidence that we have to support that it is La République du Cameroun who is actually conducting kidnapping, is doing committing all the atrocities that we witnessed today in Amazonia. And you don't have to go far to see the reasons why it would do so. We've known that they've tried to fund alternative groups or parallel groups to fight us. And it's not new. In every country where there have been uprising or where people want to attain independence, the government in power always does it. We saw that in Zimbabwe, we saw that in Angola, we saw that in South Africa, we saw that in Sudan and elsewhere. So this is not new. And for La Republic to believe that they will come to the American court system and claim that they are the victims of Ambazonia atrocity, give me a break. I think the facts will be out not too long from today. And that's what I meant. It is the end of their shedding crocodile tears. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Mungwa. All right. We want to find out for the indictments as the spokesperson of the interim government. What is the latest on ground? You know, last week we were talking about moving about two of our comrades cancers. What is the latest at the moment?
Oh, okay. I had some contacts yesterday. Things haven't changed that much from the week before, and the reason is very simple. Remember, in the United States, you cannot push, the legal system to work the way you would want. And these are not only the cases that are being tried by American courts. There are thousands of them. So it has to be done in a very systematic manner. And it's not something that you can control. It's not like in La République du Cameroon where the presidency will call and say, oh, can you please take this person to court and make sure that he's sent to jail for 20 years or whatever. It doesn't happen in the United States. It is within the United States justice system, and it takes its course. Everything is programmed to work accordingly. I think we just have to be patient and wait. When the time comes, I understand that lawyers are putting together a petition to look into the case of Claude Chi. And when the time comes, they will go to court and they'll present the evidence, and we'll see how it goes from there. So we just have to be patient. That's how the American justice system works. It has its own calendar, and we cannot push it from our side. Over to you.
Okay. All right. So tonight we read about Joe Biden calling on African leaders for the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. And I'd like to know, what are the political intricacies, owing to the fact that the indictment of R3 is in the U.S. and him calling for this right now. Are there any political entanglements in there in regards to this?
Well, I mean, we know the separation of powers in the United States. So I wouldn't want to connect the two. They're totally separate. I think Joe Biden is doing what he's supposed to do, regardless of whether our compatriots were indicted or not. It is totally different. We have the judiciary, we have the legislative, and we have the executive. These are all separate powers, and they do their job independently of each other. So I wouldn't like to do the connection. But obviously, when it comes to Africa, Biden or any Western leader always has a message for them in terms of good governance, in terms of trying to make sure that the rule of law plays its right part in bringing societies together. And you can see it's quite amazing that you brought this case. And I think I just saw a headline or read a few sentences where Mr. Biya, the first opportunity he had to speak, he was talking about he needed more money. And I just asked myself, you needed more money for what? All your fellow countrymen, your relatives, your friends, they have all embezzled huge amounts of money and kept in private accounts. And you have never raised a finger for these people to be indicted. But you want people to give more money. It appears that this guy is just waiting for people to give money so that he can embezzle, come back for more money. He's intoxicated. So I hope he's going to learn from this U.S.-Africa summit that it's not all about getting money. It's about putting to use the limited resources you have, and also trying to see how creative your people can be. It's not all about, oh, give us money, give us money. What have you been able to do to make sure that the innovation of the creativity of the people around you or in your country can be put to use? I will give you a very good example. One gentleman called Monsieur Chamini, he brought in Microsoft in La République du Cameroon at the same time that Bill Gates was developing Microsoft in the United States. But what happened? Where is he today? Of course, they muscled him and they make sure that he went bankrupt. That is typical of La République government. Systemic corruption. Whether you take Neba Motors, or you take any other company, Naga company, or anything, or you take the shipbuilding, yeah, yard where they were repairing ships under this gentleman who was head of it, a very, very high-level engineer. They were all arrested and put to jail. That is what La Republique does. You can never do business in that country. The moment you show up and they realize that you have something of importance, they would corrupt and they will probably give you some false charges. They'll send you to jail, and that's the end of you. And that's why the economy will never grow. It will never grow. So beer, talking about getting more money, it's what an embarrassment. I think they should remind him. I'm ready to give him a list of all those who have taken money from the government into billions and billions of dollars put in private accounts, and he's here only coming to ask for money. This is unfortunate.
Indeed, unfortunate. It is unfortunately unfortunate. That's the fact. Dr. Mungwa, we're going to scan through the struggle. This is the state of the liberation movement. There's some things we might be talking from our perspective, which I believe might be a repetition. And I'm calling on Ambazonians to wait. There are some videos I want them to watch, and so that we can discuss on them. And we'll be back right after this break. You're welcome back, fellow Amazonians, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying tuned. I'm calling on those who are watching on Facebook. Continue to share and to share and to share. We're taking the discussion into a new dimension. Now let's move into Washington and have a look as to what is happening. You've most probably have heard the news of those having backdoor meetings. This was anticipated, though disappointing. We may want to think that some Amazonians are prophets. Some are not just prophets, but they had intelligence on a lot of things. Fortunately, we're now having those who were excitedly supporting Coopers in their criminal act against our movement, and now realizing that they were deceived by those who have been La République du Cameroon contractors. It's everywhere. It's now confirmed that those who call themselves leaders, president, are having backdoor meetings with Cameroon for reasons no one can explain. Dr. Munga, please.
Well, this story has been on for the past month, starting with the Canadian expedition, and now it's left Canada, is now in Washington, D.C. It is very clear from all the information that we've gotten, and thank God that the Red Feathers have been, on many occasions, if not all of them, have had this information before anyone else. And the president has taken advantage of this information ahead of time to educate Ambazonians. I think the least we can say here is for Ambazonians to understand that the future of Ambazonians does not rest in the hands of coup plotters. It doesn't matter what they decide to do. So long as the Ambazonian people say, no, we are not going to abide. We are not going to obey a law that is destined to destroy us. We have sufficient data. We have sufficient witnesses who have seen what has happened to our people in the past 61 years, and we have no qualms whatsoever to say no to them. They're on their own. All these enablers and coup plotters, they're on their own. They can go and negotiate with La Republic, but it's not going to work. I mean, recently, not about 48 hours ago, I got this write-up stating very clearly the position of the American ambassador in Yaoundé, that we should be able to meet without preconditions. And that is what is going to fly. Americans never shift their position. They made it very clear from Senate Resolution 684 that we have to meet without preconditions. And they endorsed the Swiss-led process. I cannot see the Americans pulling away from that position. They are as steady as the Northern Star. We have to go back to that Swiss-led process and make sure that justice takes its reign. We have to meet with our conditions. And again, as I said earlier, the indictments in the American courts, when the verdict comes out, that will be the end. La Republique is not going to use this bankrupted lawyer. I don't know where he's even operating to file any charges against Southern Cameroonians. This is probably the nth time that this gentleman has been filing charges against, and in each occasion he has lost. Let Amazonians understand this. He has lost, and I see names all over the internet stating that people will be arrested, and I just feel sorry for him. It shows a sign of desperation. I mean, you can see that it's a sign of desperation. That is not how a democratic country operates. I just want to make him understand that people don't just go out and arrest people without without the evidence that they need to be arrested. So it is very important for this message to go across. And even when that happens, you are assumed innocent until proven guilty, and that's the law, and that law must prevail. Hopefully in Ambazonia as well. Over to you.
Dr. Mungwa, I was praying that you do not call the name of this idiot.
I did not call his name.
Yeah, in fact, I was praying that you will not even have to mention the idiot, because every time I watch what he's doing is the typical à la manière de Yaoundé. That means the Yaoundé method of doing things. You know, their budgets, they have different ways of getting into the ministries and taking money. So as a fraudster, he is aware that he cannot win a case against any Southern Cameroonian in America. But because he is in their court, Singam, whatever, whoever wants to call it, and he has to just make Yaoundé know that he's doing something so that money will be stolen by his friends and they will spend it. And he's so dull. The people from Sok are not that dull. I guess because his mom is a Bulu. So he will do what he's doing. But what Salai doesn't seem to realize is that some people, for the love of their brethren, thought that they can preserve something about Salais and the Binglos that are betraying them. But what he is failing to do is that he is making and positioning himself as an enemy of Ambazonia. And even the Bui people will not stop Ambazonia from whoever is doing today will lead to something. I said that, Dr. Mungwa, because there's this video. I wish I've tried to zoom it so that we're not going to see her. I feel so angry that I'll have a sister like this. This is an Ambazonian. This is my sister. And we would have to have her disgrace. Look at such a beautiful girl. You hardly see a Bulu girl this beautiful. And you have evil practitioners. The president calls them bloodthirsty individuals. They will come into our nation, pretend to be us. No Ambazonian, even the worst Ambazonian restoration force that has taken the biggest bribe, cannot do this to an Ambazonian. It's not possible. I'll play this so that those who are doubting can listen to this. But I want us to really talk about this because the international community is watching us now. Let us look at. I got so angry when Ochiba Nelson sent this video to me earlier on today. I got so angry that I felt like I should just speak. It's so vexing. She was not only naked. You see, a young, beautiful girl like this was raped by her captors, beaten by Bulu soldiers who are struggling to speak pidgin and purporting themselves as the Ambazonian Restoration Forces. So the desperation of Cameroon to sabotage a genuine movement of people fighting to preserve their homeland. This is what they would do to a pretty Ambazonian girl. Dr. Mungwa, please.
You don't know how I feel watching that. I have that video as well. It is for this reason that the interim government, and especially our president, Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, is so resolute to making sure that we have sovereignty restored. It is so painful to feel that we have to live in the same country with criminals like this doing this to our own sisters. I felt equally as angry. There's no way I can ever change my mind as far as this. Even if I'm the last person alive, I will never, ever accept any relationship with La Republique in either whether a federation or a union. And I hope every Ambazonian listening to me now will join us to make sure that together we will fight, at least for the sake of this young woman. We cannot allow this to happen. Just imagine it was your daughter. Imagine that's your sister. How can you allow that to happen? We have to demonstrate to the world that we are a civilized nation. We have to demonstrate to the world that we can stand on our 2 feet. And we have to demonstrate to the world that we can support each other. We cannot allow this to happen. I am extremely angry. Any evil that is done on any Ambazonian is done to all of us. It's done on every Ambazonian. And we have to fight it together. Over to you, Paddy.
Now, for those who might be doubting, I want you to just listen to the person speaking and how they can reduce an Ambazonian. This video, I cannot show her body. Some of you might have seen it, but we're not going to show that body here. This video tells you what the Bulu man thinks about an Ambazonian. That accent is Bulu. I've lived in that land. I've been to Mbangmayo. I've been to the south. I've been to San Malima. I know the way they speak. The person that was talking was a Bulu. Just watch.
Oh, bonsoir. How for you? Tu t'appelles qui là?
My name is Emmanuel.
Talk for up. I know you.
My name is Emmanuel. I come up from Munga. They catch me because my boyfriend in the military can't drop me.
Your boyfriend in the military?
Yeah, can't drop me.
Now why that damn boy don't catch you?
Yes.
Now that why that damn boy didn't catch you?
Yes.
Bon, you get boyfriend in the military?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
He there for what side?
He didn't travelers.
Oh, they stay for travelers? They carry you for you sell for outside?
I sell for opposite Congress Hall.
Chuvan O?
Opposite Congress Hall for
Oppo.
grandstand.
Okay. So it don't carry you for day, bring you for quarter. Eh? But it never tell you, Amba boy never talk to me, no fuck with down military.
I know fuck you. He take me from market.
Oh, famous actually fuck or actually appel your boyfriend. That man don't carry you for outside.
He carry me from market.
There's no need watching all of the video, because the objective of this video was two things. First of all, to embarrass the young lady, and also to sabotage the Ambazonian restoration forces. I'm trying not to say what I want to say, but if anybody is thinking that they're going to use court cases to intimidate us from picking arms, they're wasting their time. Maybe we should just say this to the court, that as it stands right now, many more arms. We're going to make sure that our people have many more arms. In fact, if any family watching in Southern Cameroon, and you think that this is not enough for you to support our initiative to pick up arms, I mean guns, AK-47 against the Republic of Cameroon, you're crazy. I told the UNHCR, Dr. Munga, you know this story. When I was being interviewed, they thought they could intimidate me. I told the UNHCR that I support self-defense by at least 200%, and the armed struggle of Ambazonia by at least 500%. Any Bulu that is putting on a uniform. Now, for those who might be blaming this girl, why are you dating a military? These girls are traders in Bamenda, and there are days that they go because of the economic situation, Dr. Mungwa, and they do not even make a 500 franc CFA. So wait until your sister is placed or subjected under such conditions, then you can judge this sister. Dr. Mungwa, you always talk about the economic situation. Right now, we have our people subjected to these conditions. If a peasant can be subjected like this and she reacts by dating an enemy, and then she is victimized. I want us to go to another story that has to do with elders that have everything betraying us. We have seen the fun on Saw, and now is the fun of Mancon that has just been enthroned a few days ago. Calculatively working with the colonizers against his own people. Please talk to us.
I mean, I go back. You said you support self-defense 200%. I support self-defense 500%. The right to self-defense is universal, and that's what is happening in the Ukraine today. They have the right to defend themselves, and let no one be fooled. This indictment has nothing to do with our ability or our right for self-determination. We are going to proceed with defending ourselves until such a time as we sit on the table to negotiate how to separate peacefully. That is what the interim government is out for. Nothing less. That's the minimum. Negotiate our separation and let these savages leave our land. We have not been able to progress 1 inch in 60 years. And talking about the action of the funds, this is very unfortunate and also very, very disturbing. Because by such action, they are eroding the relevance of our traditional rulers. I can assure them that It is through their actions that the people will determine whether they have to respect them. And when the people stop to recognize the traditional institutions, these traditional institutions collapse. I'm not coming here to say that, oh, we are going to take the fund of Moankon to court or do anything of that nature. The action of the funds will determine whether the people will accept their rulership over them. It has always been that way in history. And so, whether it's the fund of Saw, whether it's the fund of Mancon, or any other fund in the Northwest, they really have to be very careful, because the time is coming when they cannot impose their authority over the people as a result of their actions. And I remember we actually did a session here about the importance of our funds and our chiefs, and how we have to make sure that they're apolitical so that they can retain their power. They should be executives in their counties to bring development, to make sure that, if they have specific natural resources or whether human resources, we can develop them for the good of those counties. That's what the interim government has in store for these traditional rulers. But when you turn and you work with your colonizer to kill your own people, that's totally unacceptable. And I hope they are listening. Over to you, Paddy.
Dr. Mungwa, you are a high government official, so you speak the way you have to speak. If it is left to me, I think that anyone who is trying to preserve whatever they call the fondoms and the chiefdoms in the history of Southern Cameroons that we are writing or rewriting today is making a mistake, because the funds themselves have defied the very secrecy of these offices. For Nangwafo, before he died, was not a fund. That he had the title didn't make him a fund. He was a political leader by every aspect of it. He was not even ashamed to make professions of his political inclination. He put before his enthronement as a fund, he put his position in CPDM. He was vice president for decades with the ruling party, and he betrayed his own people a couple of times. The Sponham saw in front of camera, arrested and apprehended by his own kids who sympathized with him, told them that he would rather prefer Bobia against them. This is a defiance of whatever you call fondom. So I will argue that our generation should stand against those offices. They are not working for our good. They were not created by God, and they must not be maintained. That is my argument. We move forward. There is another video. This is somebody a lot of Amazonians already hate. And
can I just make an addition to what you said? People
yes,
don't remember the late Fonanso, who was invited by Ahijo to come to Yaoundé. And the Fon told Ahijo, the Fon never leaves his palace. You come and see the Fon never goes to see you. That shows you the power and authority of our traditional rulers the way it should be. And indeed, Ahijo went to the palace of the Fonanso. I said, there you go. That's how it works. I don't leave my kingdom. You come to my kingdom. But look at what is happening today. And it's because it's been diluted and it's been corrupted by this Franco-Cameroonian spirit. The same thing that France did to Haiti. The same thing that they did in other French African countries. That's exactly what is happening in Ambazonia today. So let Ambazonians understand, we cannot let our society deteriorate any further. We have to rescue it and put it back on track. Over to you, Paddy.
Dr. Mungwa, the question even we want to ask is, the colonizers have intentionally destroy the very fabric of the fundamentals. So are we just carried with something that God did not create? I'm a Christian, and the Bible warns. It says, stay clear of the traditions and the rudiments of this world. It says you should stay clear of it. We must not stick to it. The reason why you have Western countries are making progress, because as civilization comes, modernity, institutions change. The model of whatever we have today as fiefdoms and chiefdoms is being used by the oppressor against us.
Right, you're absolutely correct.
We have tried for decades to keep them. We need to revolutionize them.
I am not here to dictate exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I'm not here to dictate exactly what is going to happen. The Ambazonians would sit down and determine the outcome of the funds or the fiefdoms and the chiefdoms. I'm not here to legislate or tell exactly what's going to happen. We are going to refashion our traditions, refashion the role of the funds, the role of the chiefdoms, and it will be done by Ambazonians. And the trend in which is going now, they are going to have a very, very limited following. Maybe there's still some of the fiefdoms that still remain intact because of the way they have behaved themselves, but we can all see that it's been highly corrupted. And I am not, an expert in social, I don't know what you can call it, anthropology or anything of that nature. But I believe that but I believe that we are going to have institutions to look deeply into the role, whether they will be diminished in such a way that they can reconstitute themselves before they can be of relevance to our societies, or they will take some other route. But I think the interim government will be open to ideas, and we're not just going to enact laws without asking the people. It may be something that will be on the ballot for people to vote what they have to do with it. But it's something that we'll look into in the future.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's amazing. It's about a people charting their course, charting their path, and making a determination of where they intend to go. And I do not think that the pattern that has been imposed on us by colonizers will have to conform. We are where we are today because we defied what they taught us. They taught us to become Cameroonians. They taught us to think that we are Lebaminda, we are the fools, that we were not smart enough, that our cultures were not strong enough, that they were more intelligent than us. But we defied that notion. Mental slavery, we were freed from it, and we took the audacity to fight them. If we can fight cultures and traditions, anyone that doesn't work for us, we can change it. It must not be there. It is not God. It is better than our people dying. Now, this is Clovis. I don't know if that is his name. We have him here in limbo, beaten by his own friends. I hope I can have this image better. He is being beaten by his friends. And these are individuals who were advised just a few days ago, and they would not listen. I think that whatever is said in this video, Dr. Mungwa, I'm sure you would have watched, is definitely a setup, because Cameroon works in the same manner, whereby they plot you against you. So they have sent individuals. He thought he was fighting for them, but they have plotted against him. And according to this video, they are claiming that he has betrayed them against Bia. Therefore, he has been seriously beaten by his own friends, by those whom he stood for against his own brothers and sisters. Perhaps we want to listen to this before we make a comment.
Man of the
community, Cameroon for who them? For all we, for you one who countryman. Cameroon for all we let the country now. Whether we drop our weapons, President Fabia.
Yes, Dr. Mungwa.
Well,
That's a deep matter for you.
yeah, to be honest with you, I started watching that video, but something happened. I didn't get to the end. Absolutely, it's very, very disturbing. You have to understand, is it's not easy to watch all of these videos because there's so many things that I mean I do in particular in order to be up to date and refurbish my speech to Ambazonians every week. Um, but it is a very, very intricate situation that you have people plotting against each other and treating them the way that we see on video. There are just too many of them, and it's very, very disturbing for me to, to talk about in detail. Um, it's 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 very, very sad. It's very, very sad. But ultimately, as we've said in the past, um, we we sent pieces of advice to restoration forces on the ground. If they can just listen and make sure that they go by the orders that we give them, a lot of this will be averted. Secondly, we've talked about, I remember I talked to you about situation awareness and how people really have to be aware of the environment that they operate on. I remember that sometime in the past, they actually released some so-called student gendarmes to go back into the neighborhood so that they can gather intelligence. That plan is not off, it's still on course. So it is not something that, oh, after a while you say, no, everything has come back to normalcy. Nothing has gone to normalcy. These people are so desperate that they use every tactic, whatsoever, in order to derail this movement. And this is something that defense does. But of course, as the communication secretary, there are time to time that I have to cross over to that area and at least understand what is going on. But it is very complex. But again, we can rely on education and we can also rely on the military leadership on the ground. I've had occasion, to listen to some of them speak, and I've seen that they have a lot of maturity, a lot of maturity. But we need to make sure that those who are under the supervision, who answer to these leaders, they should listen and make sure that they go by the word that is given to them. I know it's not easy. It's not easy, but as this war draws to a close, there's even a greater pressure for us to reconstitute and make sure that we don't unnecessarily lose our soldiers because of misinformation, and which leads to some of the actions that you've just shown on television. Over to you.
Dr. Mungwa, when I'm here, I want us to get into more serious discussion before we conclude the talk of today. When I'm here, I want to ask really hard questions because I'm standing in the stead of the Ambazonian people. When you look into the situation room of our struggle now, there's no doubt that the infiltration is clear. La République du Cameroon has infiltrated camps in different counties, and that has cost the lives of many Ambazonian restoration forces. Some have been compromised. Intelligence report has it that 10 Kobo has now been resettled. I hope that is true. I pray that he has actually been resettled instead of being killed, so that someday the blood of our people will prick his conscience to return on the field and do justice to the oppressor. Do you by any chance, reacting to what this statement, think that not just Coopers, but within our interim government structure, I'm talking from the counties to the LGAs or from the LGAs to county, La République has infiltrated some, maybe county chairs or defense officials, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And that's why we have some lukewarmness. If so be the case, I wish I can ask this question to the president and vice president, but as spokesperson, you have to carry that burden here. If so be the case, what do we have as a parameter to make a determination of someone who's pretending to be us and not us? Because we're talking about life and death. It's an existential battle. This is a serious matter. This has been a reflection. Sometimes you don't understand why some counties function the way they function. and we keep getting excuses. Do you think that infiltration is still within our ranks? And if so be, how is the interim government planning to tackle this? Cameroon wants to fight.
It is not surprising, again, in a revolution like this, that you have infiltration into camps, and it's a it's a two-way process. We have come to understand the modus operandi of La République du Cameroon because of our own infiltration as well. So this infiltration is not happening just on one side. But having said that, of course, we would like to make sure that we prevent that infiltration to go into the heart of our governance on the way we structure and conduct our business. I can assure you that the core of the interim government is still intact. The essential core of the interim government is still intact. Whenever we find any sort of compromise, it is dealt with within the interim government. And it is not for me to come here and tell you exactly what we have to do. But we keep watching, we keep taking notes and trying to see certain patterns so that if we see any misalignment with the policies of the interim government, we have to act on it. And it is not just within the structures, within the interim government itself. It is also, we talked about the counties and the LGAs. It is important that at the level of the counties or the LGAs, those who are at leadership, they have to understand and monitor the actions of those who report to them. It is not the role of the interim government at the top to be able to monitor everything at the ground. We have watched people at the level of the counties and level of LGAs, and whenever we see misalignment in policy or in the way they work, we always bring it up, and we never miss the occasion to raise fingers as to who is doing what, especially since the massive what happened about a year ago when we discovered that there were enablers almost at every level of government. Ever since we flushed those people out, you can see that there's been some stability. But regardless, I do understand what you are talking about. But this is something that maybe the president would like to go much further. And he did say that in his speech, he's promised to talk to us tomorrow evening, that he understands that there are some enablers who are working very hard to destabilize us. I think the fact that we know about it, it's very helpful. And some of the counter moves that we are putting into place, we cannot tell you. And that's why we readily get information, almost instantly, whatever they do. People are surprised, how do we get it? So, I mean, if you have more than 3-4 people in the room, there is a high probability that, whatever takes place in there, one of them will tell us. But we can't go around shouting. We have that information too. And we are very steadfast. The president knows what he's doing, and we all work together to make sure that this struggle is managed to its final end.
One thing I want to say, perhaps I shouldn't say it on this platform, is that the government did not make a mistake nominating you as spokesperson because of the diligence of your word. But then, when I'll still push on this. My recommendation to government is that any county, LGA or county or authority of government who has a problem or who is not participating for the federal draft, because the federal draft is a solution to some of the things, I think that county and leadership should be checked very closely. The reason is because, like Dr. Mungwa, you have just said, government still has some core. We should be able to monitor from the center what is happening. And like I said on Saturday, the Amba peace plan was not autonomous governance at the level of the local government. It was shared governance, meaning that the government is not just there to group people to come and raise money and give you. The government is supposed to make a determination on your strategy and execution. That has not been very effective. Perhaps, Dr. Mungwa, you want to talk on that before we move on other things? The importance of the federal government draft will help to cut some of this infiltration that we're suffering about.
Yes, absolutely. We know that the force behind our success in this struggle, or in this revolution, is the ability to raise money. And today, we had the federal draft, and that federal draft is very, very important. That federal draft actually gives the government some sort of leverage to address some sort of instability or disequilibrium in certain parts of the country, whether in terms of providing additional fighting force to areas where they are needed, or providing assistance to areas where we do not have as much financial support. So it is very, very important to have this additional funding at the level of the government, because it really creates a fantastic tool that we can use to bring emergency support to any group at the home front, without having to probably go into the accounts of different counties, which will not be appropriate, because every county has its own agenda, has its own strategy. So the federal draft actually gives the government that leverage that they can unilaterally address specific issues without having to borrow from other accounts. So that's the power of that. And the president, and I mean, of course, through the treasury, has been extremely effective in that. And that's why they can provide support almost instantly, which is what we call emergency support. And we're so happy that people came out in their numbers and they made a statement last week. And I don't have to repeat that statement here. You saw what we're able to raise. I think it shows that Dr. Sako is well respected and is well liked by the Ambazonian people. And we all know that that is the right person who will take us to Boya, come rain or shine.
Now, talking about raising of funds, it brings me to this very important subject of discussion. An individual big mouthing. This is a man a few days ago. He stood with his big mouth and told Ambazonians how best he can raise money, and that there's no money forthcoming. And he knows how. In fact, he was the best. He started by abusing women and saying that Madame Marie was spreading her legs, and then now ended up to say that he has donors that could give him thousands of US dollars. Evidently, we are realizing today that he was actually given also by La République du Cameroon and their proxies. And in their obvious mannerism, he has been used and dumped. So the used and dumped Anus is grumbling shamelessly that President Sako is raising money. But I thought he had impeached him, and he should be raising money if actually the people loved him. Go ahead.
Buddy, I think we're just misusing airtime to talk about this gentleman. We have 1,000 facts or evidence or whatever, or scenarios or observations about this gentleman that he lost track right from the beginning because of his how to put that, his taste for power. I mean, this is somebody who wants everything. He wants to be president. He has no strategy. It is somebody who is even so hungry. And normally, if you come to a struggle like this with the intention that you are going to make money, of course, then you are open to all sorts of devices. And an outcome like his is not surprising. I don't want to spend my time talking about him. He's already positioned himself in the trash can of history. So why go there to talk to him? I don't think that's where we belong. I think let him continue with his comedy, if I can put it that way. And let's focus ourselves on trying to rescue Ambazonia and its future so that we can give hope to the hopeless. There are lots of Ambazonians, if not all of them. They are actually counting on us to deliver. And you cannot deliver when you are sleeping on the same bed with La République du Cameroon. You cannot deliver when you expect La République du Cameroon to give you money or to have secret meetings with them. It is totally unacceptable. Anybody who goes in a secret meeting to discuss whatever it is regarding the future of Ambazonia is dead on arrival. We should stop talking about all these leaders who are like marionettes or who are just becoming comedians. Let's be serious about what we are talking about on this platform. I mean, if you want to watch your comedy, you can go to the sanctity of your bedroom or wherever and watch it there. Not here on ABC. We have a lot of work to do. We have to make sure that we go to the table and decide on the future of Ambazonia and start nation building immediately. That is critical.
Talking about the tables, it's a talk of the Ambazonian community lately. We have people actually asking. I've just seen some comments asking the protests, and you sent out a message which, with your permission, I would like us to use that to start that discussion. The rationale of government strategy, that's preparing the ground for tomorrow's discussion, because I believe the president will give us more reasons as to why he decided that the government would take the stand they are taking. But before that, you had already sent out message to the nation encouraging Ambazonians on what is right for them to do. And we have shared it as wide as possible. And we think many more Ambazonians have the right to know more about it, what we should do at this time. Some have argued, like me, that what you're proposing can be done during, before, during, and even after now. Ambazonians just listen for those who have not heard.
Alert, alert, alert. This is Dr. Martin Mungwa, Secretary of State for Communication and IT for the interim government. Dear Ambazonians, and especially those in the United States, we have learned from reliable sources that the head of the genocidal regime in La République du Cameroon, in the name of Paul Biya, will be arriving in the United States and Washington, D.C. in particular, tomorrow, December 10th. I call on all Ambazonians of goodwill and even friends of Ambazonia to call their congressmen and tell them that the head of the regime that has been killing Ambazonians mercilessly for the past 6 years will be arriving the United States tomorrow, December the 10th, to meet with President Biden. It is very important at this time to raise awareness about the genocide that is taking place in our homeland. And it is a great moment for the United States law people to make sure that President Biden brings up this matter with Paul Biya and make sure that this genocide that is taking place in our country comes to a stop, and to make sure that there is a meeting between Mr. Biya's government and the interim government, and to make sure in order to bring this genocide to a close. So I am calling on all Ambazonians, especially those residents in the United States, to call their congressmen and make sure that they are alerted about their imminent arrival of Mr. Paul Biya to the United States, Washington, D.C. Thank you. Goodbye.
Surely you would like to enforce on that, Dr. Mungwa.
Right. Absolutely. I know that they've been, I've seen a lot of comments on social media regarding the president not putting his thrust behind the need for a sort of a protest. Um, the interim government is not against protests. It's fine for people to go and do their protest out there. But we know that at this stage, the level at which our problem is very much higher than what protest will make a change to. Over the past 6 years, we've protested. What have we gotten? We'll be able to get um, the what do you call that again? The temporarily protected status. We've gotten Senate Resolution 684. And at this point, what we want is to make sure that we can sit on the table and talk about our ultimate separation. And that die has already been rolled. Has already been cast. So if you put an emphasis on sort of a protest now, I'm not saying that it's not good, but we don't know. We don't believe that it's going to be as effective as. But let me pull it back. Not matter of being effective, but I think that it is not the government now to be leading that. People can decide that they want to go and protest against Paul Biya being here. I don't really see the need why it has to be the interim government mandating that you have to go and march. You can go there, you can go and protest. But we believe that if you use the lawmakers, now that Biya is here, these lawmakers can actually go and see Biya. Just imagine if 20 or 30 senators come there and say, we want to talk to Paul Biya on what is happening in Anglophone Cameroon or in Ambazonia. Do you think that those protests will have the same impact? You have to understand that there is no gathering in the world that doesn't have protests. But how much impact do they make as opposed to the people who can make the law change? So I believe it's more of effectiveness because this information was obtained at short notice. Do you know how to mobilize people from Canada, from all parts of the United States? Take California. California is 8 hours away. Within 2 days, I have to fly to Washington, D.C. In the past, when we started this, the desperation that we had, it took us months to arrange for these marches to go to Washington, D.C. But we are targeting it now to make sure that this Senate Resolution 684 that was signed by senators, if you tell them, listen, you remember you signed Senate Resolution 684, they say yes. The person who is at the center of this genocide, he is here in Washington, D.C. And that's where they all find themselves. Wouldn't it be easier for them to say, okay, we want to talk to this person one-to-one basis? Which one is more effective? You tell me. I believe that talking to our congressmen, talking to our senators, to talk to Biya, and I'm telling you that they will be ready to do that because that's their job. It's going to be far more effective. So as a government, we want to behave as a government. But at the same time, we do not prevent Amazonians to go and protest. They can go and protest. They're absolutely free to do that. I think that also shows how mature we are. Look, we are a people and we want to have leaders of society who will be able to take their responsibilities, not only waiting for the government to give them orders. If we have people in society who say, okay, we are there to make sure that if there's action on the ground, we'll take our responsibility and go and make sure that the protest is carried out, that's perfectly fine. And I want our society to be like that. You shouldn't just be waiting for the head of state to say, okay, go do this, go do that, it doesn't make sense. Is that what happens in this country? When they go out to march for Me Too, was it Biden who told the people to go and march for Me Too? When they march on anti, racism or that, do they march because Biden tells them to march? No. People march because they feel they have that conscience, they're convicted, they think they can do it. Ambazonians are the same. You can decide to go and protest. Don't only think that President Sako will tell you to.
Tell you
Doesn't
to
make
go
sense.
and protest before. You see, Dr. Munga, that's the fact, because I, for one, I don't have a problem with the protest, because it has to do with your energy and your time. And perhaps you could have, but in as much as I know, there are times we've had massive protests and the media avoids the protesters and still portrays what they want. The mainstream media function in very mystical ways. And as we speak right now, just to explain to those who are viewing us, we just bias coming to America has had them fighting our page. When you put the word beer, I did a post 2 days ago with the word beer. I actually saw it was restricted, and I was told it was a hate speech. There was no insultive. In fact, the way Facebook has been politicized. So you can still achieve something. But one thing that was shocking to me, Dr. Mungwa, is how the protesters or those who are willing to protest are getting aggressive, trying to dictate to the interim government to be a part of them. You are the majority, like you claim. Just go and protest. I don't have a problem with the protest, but the government must not be a part of the protest. Now, Dr. Mungwa, before I asked one of your last questions, I'm going through some of the questions. I appreciate all the reactions of everyone. Abu Nga Aku Mabri, Professor Tebo, your comments have been taken note. It says, thank you, SOS Mungwa. Our goal remains Boya and a free Ambazonia. Let us focus our energies to support IG led by President Sako in order to achieve this goal. Thank you. The reactions are diverse. You have Ferdinand Kinye, yes to self-determination, no to exploitation, marginalization, assimilation, annexation. I appreciate you. Thank you. We will take a few calls if you will call. In the next few minutes, we'll be rounding off the program. If you can call, the numbers are on the screen. Dr. Mungwa would like to hear from you, perhaps your perspective. Okay, Comrade Ferdinand Kinye, I hope I'm pronouncing your name well. I do not think we've made any statement on this platform that seemed to suggest that the government or myself or Dr. Munga, perhaps you're talking to me because you addressed me, is dictating or imposing. We're simply reiterating the need to respect our institutional framework, which is the Amba Peace Plan and shared governance. What you should be protesting against is not our insistence for people to respect it, but against those who are not respecting the structure the way it should be. And that it will cause the government to want to use. I don't think that is imposition. The government of President Sako is the one government I know during a wartime that consults with the people before making decisions. The Amba Peace Plan, if we would all respect it, is the best model that the world has ever known during a war like ours. Dr. Munga, perhaps you want to react to that.
Yeah, absolutely. The Amba Peace Plan, it is thanks to the Amba Peace Plan that we are surviving today. That federal system where you have independent units, but they're all part of that whole. It is so important and gives redundancy. And I've said this over and over again on this program. It provides redundancy in the system. So you can have one part which may not really be functioning well. We can repair it as we go along, but while the rest of the whole still functions efficiently. And that's why we've seen situations where there's one part of the county that is not performing well, and over time we fix it while another part of the county is performing very well. that gives it redundancy and that gives it stability as a whole. It's a structural system. Maybe look at it from a structural engineer's point of view. And this is the best plan that you can ever have. If we had to rely on the previous administration's plan, where you had one entity at the top and everything connected to it, the moment that entity at the top is destroyed, there goes the entire system. And this is so powerful, and that's the strength of the interim government. And the president, Dr. Samuel Sako, has made sure that he gives the energy and provides the resources to make these entities very, very strong. I think it's one of the reasons why we have this federal draft. It's all part of the APP, Amba Peace Plan. That is part of it. So everything we do is towards strengthening the Amba Peace Plan. And I can show you that, without that structure, I think would have long ceased to exist. And you can see that people who break off from the Amba Peace Plan makes us even stronger, because now we reconstitute and we find the right people to take up positions and makes us stronger. And these people who only want to take advantage of us, they get out of the system. They cannot even manage what they have, because they don't understand that overall concept of the Amba Peace Plan. They may talk about it, but they don't know how to execute it. And it's almost like the typical La Republique mentality, where they thought that when they stole the elections from the SDF, they said, well, what does the SDF have? So they decided to have meetings with the SDF, deceiving them that, oh, we want to come to some compromise so we can change the constitution, change the electoral law. But the idea was to copy what they do. Of course, they didn't know even how to copy. And you see where they are today. There's several billions in debt. They cannot pay their debts. Go ask them, why did they do that, and why did they get out of that, out of the trying to steal from the SDF? But finally, what has happened? The SDF, they all come together with a CPA, and they're all the same. And that's why it's important that the Amba Peace Plan, it is followed, to the letter, and we should have a leader who understands the various aspects of the Amba Peace Plan, so he monitors and makes improvement as we go on. Over to you.
That is amazing. You just stay tuned, because for those who do not understand the idea of the president in that regard, I will conclude this program. I'm going to play it's just a few minutes of his address to stakeholders on Saturday. So you watch again, and in anticipation of the show tomorrow. Tomorrow I hope that I will be able to catch Warchai and Onesmo Ochiba. They're both always coming from work later. Ochiba can be more available. We might have some pre-discussions from 8 p.m. Amba time before the president comes up at 9. And we will scoop around some things that we were supposed to talk about. Dr. Mungwa, you also highlighted that video to me. I don't want to highlight or show him, but I'm sure you advised that we can have a discussion on it with this guy with 978 teeth in his mouth, trying to make utterances that are implicating. You watched it and you wanted us to have a discussion about it. Perhaps you have a reaction to it.
I mean, can you say that again? The reaction to which video?
I'm talking about the video of J. Carl. Or perhaps, are you aware he has 998? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Right. A J. Carl who claims that he has evidence against our compatriots, and in terms of whether, I don't know, he's talking about either is it money transfer or some kidnapping. I think that would be wonderful for J. Carl to appear in front of the judge and to provide all the pieces of evidence that he claims he has, he has with him. I thought that what that gentleman was talking about was, put it and I don't want to use such words here, just garbage, absolute garbage. Yes, it's absolute garbage. And when
The
you
F word.
see, I, this is somebody whom I don't think is anyone to be trusted for what we know about him. And I don't think I would want to sit here and talk about J. Carr because I've seen a lot of the garbage that he's written in the past. And these are not the people that we should be projecting on our screens. Um, but it will. I would like to see him come to court and then provide the evidence that he thinks that he has against him. When you talk about money laundering and so on, people, Amazonians have a problem, or we have a problem, especially the enablers. They don't probably think when they have a negative attitude towards an idea, they automatically think that it's criminal. You take something like money laundering. People don't know the definition of money laundering. Anyone, and there are lots of Amazonians.
Please, sir, you need to do that. A lot of Amazonians don't know what money laundering is.
Exactly.
Please go ahead.
As a financial expert, I'm licensed financial expert, and many Amazonians, the first thing you do, you take an anti-money laundering course before you go into any financial transaction. That's the first thing that you are taught. You have to pass that exam. And these compatriots with financial experts, so to accuse them of money laundering is even laughable because they should have been picked up even earlier than that. I'll just read the definition. Money laundering is the process of concealing the origin of money obtained from illicit activities like drug trafficking. How can you prove that? Are you telling me that our compatriots were dealing in drug trafficking and they were trying to use a medium to put that money into circulation, like creating a restaurant where they can overbill or whatever, give you false bills so that you can put it into the system? Is this what our people will do?
Unless, Dr. Mungwa, unless the definition of money laundering will be redefined in America, because in Cameroon, they can use any word to you.
They just use words loosely.
And then
Okay?
they just redefine it.
In cryptocurrency, it is not a crime.
It's not a crime.
You file your taxes and you include the cryptocurrency that if you've lost money, in fact, the government gives back money to you. People don't know that. When you make money, the government, you pay taxes on that money. If you don't make money, the government gives you back money. That's how it works. So because you deal in cryptocurrency, that certainly you are dealing in money laundering. I don't understand. Where are we living in? So that is some of the things that when I read what these so-called lawyers write, it is unbelievable.
Shameful.
When you take a country, you're talking about like a corruption. When you take a country like Cameroon or La République du Cameroon, that is out of how many countries in the world, they were ranked on the lower 10% of the countries that have the most, by Transparency International, the most corrupt. Now they have to come to the United States to talk about money laundering and corruption and all that sort of thing. It is laughable. I wish they could have just shown it in their own country how things are done the right way. It is written here that Cameroon is viewed as rife with corruption at all levels of government. This is an official document from Transparency International. In 1997, Cameroon established anti-corruption bureaus in 29 ministries, but less than 25% became operational. That's Cameroon for you. And I can assure you that it's only the ministries where you have non-Betis as leaders or as ministers. All the Beti run or bully run government department, nobody will put any anti-corruption institutions or bureaus in those ministries because they are the chief embezzlers of government funds. Okay, so Transparency International placed Cameroon at number 144 out of 176 countries, ranked from the least to the most corrupt. So you can arguably say that Cameroon is the most, or one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I hear
it
you.
is it this is unbelievable. And then let me tell you another little thing about La République du Cameroon. They went ahead and actually published some data on the on the roads that so-called roads that they have fixed, or what the roads that they have. They said they have 10,000 kilometers of road. Road, if you look at the definition of a road, there is no road expressway in Cameroon. No expressway, not even 1 meter of expressway. What they have arteries, okay, like 2 lanes without the dividing jersey barriers, as you call them. You don't have them. It is only expressways that have that, because you can have, now people can go at very high speed without crossing traffic. La République has 0. And they say
You
they have
see,
10,000.
you see, Dr. Munga, I do not even want to waste my time on the way they use words. Sisiko Ayuk Tabe and friends have been condemned for life imprisonment, that they are terrorists. Are they terrorists?
Of
Only
course
in
not.
Cameroon do you have a professor in a university, a man in society like President Sisiko Julius Ayuk Tabe, that is getting into the United States of America unabated, in and out, condemned to life imprisonment for terrorism, only in Cameroon. So outside Cameroon, there's no case. Money laundering, there's no case. Terrorists, there's no case.
There's no
The
case.
US has not declared us terrorists. So I want to dwell on the objective of the employment of such words. The objective is to intimidate and manipulate a vulnerable public. We
Yes.
have learned from French Cameroon not to read. So a lot of those who have studied stricto sensu in the Cameroons don't know how to read. They have certificates, but they don't know how to read. Do yourself some diligence and investigate your own rights. If you depend on the education that BIA gave to you, and that is why they have locked up the Kintasan Wilfred today, you become a fool. We will not be intimidated because we have been enlightened. And the target, sir, permit me, is look at the 2 particularly, even the 3. Let me add Langme into the triangle. They are aware that we have the core of firepower on the ground from Gokitunja into Bui. So the target are not these guys. They will be freed. In the United States of America, they are citizens and nothing will be done to them. The target is Cameroon, using any criminal means available to them to ensure no mercy on the ground. And
That's
their
absolutely
assumption
right. Yes.
is that
And they
if they
use
would
it to intimidate
dismantle
those.
go ahead, sir.
It's just to intimidate Ambazonians that, oh, you are so-called leaders overseas that are going to arrest them because they are terrorists. Like you and I think I've seen my name being peddled in, I don't know,
Yeah.
being peddled all over the place, and people are getting so excited. I live 5 minutes from my police post. I walk past there every day. They know me in the neighborhood. So, so they think that when they call their name, oh, it is not Bankwi, it is not Sedek, whatever they call themselves, that they'll just come at night, bundle you, and that's the end of you. In fact, if you are arrested for no good cause, the police will be in trouble. In America, people don't know that. You sue the police, and they have to explain why they arrested you, deprived you of your civil rights. So, and this buffoon who came on television and said, oh, they're going to expand and make sure that the leaders are brought to book. Are you, this guy, out of his mind?
It just shows what we're saying, Dr. Mungwa. We're just talking in consonants. These are buffoons on stage with a mic. You have Mark Barata, you have the 3 million teeth guy who calls himself Prince J-Car. You have all of them. Another one, Nanchop, Madam Nanchop. They're waste of their generation as youths. that have chosen to be worse than their forebears that did not have the social media that they're having today. It's unfortunate that you have a tool and you do not have anything you want to study. You can even study online. You do not even need to go into a classroom. So I'd like us to conclude on this particular point. It has to do with the education they're giving to us, the intimidation. When I was in Cameroon, I was coordinating one of the churches in Bengui at one time, and one of the leaders was arbitrarily arrested by the order of the state council. It was a young bull guy in Bengui, and I went there to intervene. You know me. I asked that man. After we went to the gendarme, we heard now that they want to transfer him into Bengui prison, and it has to do with Bengui and all of that. I asked 3 questions to this guy. All of them come from Enam. Enam was a school created by France to train us to be dogs. That's the best description of Enam. So they have 2 strategies to manipulate you and to intimidate you. So when I ask him straightforward questions, I said, a so and so called person. We are not in Yaoundé and Douala, not in Sompa, Yaoundé and Douala here that you just lock somebody and you even want to send him to jail because a woman has said something about him. So I asked him 3 questions. You know what he did, Dr. Mungwa? He stood up and intimidated me and said, if I open my mouth again, I should remove my shoe, remove my belt, and I'll go behind. I said, for what? Now he thought I was going to be intimidated by that. I said, for what? Honestly, I would have gone to jail on that day because I was ready to fight with him. Fortunately, there was one of the lawyers which we took there. He begged me not to. I was willing to fight because I said, for what? He stood up and I stood up and I asked him for what? And then the lawyer told me to calm down and then negotiate. He wanted to arrest me and lock me because I asked questions that he could not answer. That is all.
These are all agents of miscarriage of justice in Ambazonia. That will not be allowed to continue. Agents of miscarriage of justice. And that's where we see the beauty of the common law system, where you are innocent until proven guilty. This Napoleonic law that is practiced in France. In fact, people probably claim that it is practiced at its purest form in France. And anything that you have in the colony is just garbage because intimidation and all that sort of thing, people who don't even recognize their civil rights. You can see why it prospers. With Festus, it is very unfortunate. I happen to know that that jurisdiction in Bengui. I've been there myself some 20-something years ago. So this is a system that we have to completely wipe out. That will be the first emancipation for Ambazonians, for us to regain our freedom and a sense of self-worth. And I urge Ambazonians to understand that we, in the interim government, we are fighting this war with all our might. And nothing is going to come between us to prevent us from taking all of us to Boya. La République du Cameroon does not have the money to bribe us. Put it that way, which means that they cannot do it. And we know from the ambassador's speech in Yaoundé, this is, as I told you, the eagle, spirit of the eagle. Then justice must be done. It must be fair, and we must meet without preconditions in order to address the root cause of the genocide that is taking place in Ambazonia. And we will fight even with bare knuckles to the finishing line. I want to assure Ambazonians that we are in for the long run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in conclusion, Dr. Mungwa, before you give your last word, just so you know, if sending money to Cameroon has been a problem, it is worth noting that more than 30% of the economy in Southern Cameroons for at least 2 decades has been enhanced by foreign repatriation.
That's I know.
People abroad
Absolutely.
sending money, billions, millions
from abroad.
of
That's correct.
millions.
Yes.
You understand? Every family in Southern Cameroons, employment rate is less than 30%. Now that you see people surviving, even those who do agriculture, what they get from agriculture is not up to 20%.
Look, the statistics
of survival comes from money from abroad. So when did it suddenly become money laundering? Go ahead, sir.
The statistics are even more dire. La République du Cameroon last performed the censorship in 2010. No, sorry, 2005.
2005. Yes.
Yes. And normally you're supposed to do it every 10 years. But I think they got the results, I think, by 2015. And you can imagine the time span they're supposed to do it again, but they haven't done it. And remember that when they take this censorship, of course, they go to the Bulu areas and they magnify and they give them false numbers. So nobody really knows what their population is. It's all based on projections from when we actually had the real data in the late 70s. And you can imagine a government now, you want to do development when you don't even have statistics. How can you develop? How can you do any planning in a country without statistics? In America, statistics is at the core of decision making. If you don't have statistics, in fact, if you take the area where I live in, you go to the map, you click, you can even know the families with diabetes. It's that simple. Therefore, even public projects, they know how to direct public projects so that it can address the needs of certain communities that are not in good health. But just the basic statistics in La République du Cameroon is non-existent. It's all based on guesswork. One interesting thing about La République is this. If you read about La République du Cameroon, you would think that that is heaven on earth. The way they write it, oh my goodness, you said this is a country, until you go to the country itself and you realize that it's the heap of dirt, starting from those in governance. The corruption is endemic. Unbelievable.
Yes, Dr. Mungwa, before you take your last statement and we take this caller that's just calling in to make a contribution, I just like to highlight in 2014 into 2015, Bamenda was the fastest growing economy in the Cameroons. I'm talking about the Northwest, what they call the Northwest region at the time, was the fastest growing economy. And the Bulus insinuated that it was based on scamming. But now when investigations were made, they realized 2 reasons enhance that economic growth. First of all, because the young generation in Bamenda had gone into agriculture aggressively. The Enugu Highway, Bamenda to Ekok Highway that the World Bank constructed, enabled economy. And every young guy in Santa had a farm. They were now exporting into the vibrant Nigerian economy. Nobody was going to Douala to buy. Remember, before you buy a good jean, a pair of jeans, you had to go to Bafusa or to Douala. It was a calculated attempt to stop the people. Now everybody was doing trade between Bamenda and Yaoundé. Everything, goods and services in Bamenda were cheap, and then money was coming from abroad. And so they didn't understand. The boys in Bamenda were traveling from Bamenda to Yaoundé with a lot of autonomy, with ambience. In fact, when they hear that a boy is coming from Bamenda, they called them scammers, but they were hard workers, and there was a lot of money. And now the Biya government had to do everything to stop that. Working with the Buhari government to block the borders and to stop every business, just to frustrate the guys. Now we have a caller. Dr. Munga, I know you excitedly want to contribute to that, but just let's take this caller and then you make a contribution to that. Yes, caller, go right ahead. We can hear you.
Yes, Patty, I don't know the time there, but good evening. Thank you so much for the writing. And also thank you so much, Dr. Mungwa, for giving us insight into the matter. What I want to say is, like what Dr. Mungwa is insisting on, that there's no need that we should come online and start calling those people which, because if you look at some of the shows, like you call JK and the rest, you look at some of the shows, they are falling away. They are falling away. There's no time for us to come online and we start talking about them, because the true Amazonian, they already know who they are following. And there's no other person than Dr. Sako. If briefly you are an Amazonian, which deeply in the heart, you know the right person to follow. This thing doesn't hide. It doesn't hide. So I'm just insisting so that all of us should try to know when we come online and where we are putting, where we are putting our pressure, and also where we are wasting our time on. So it was just my contribution. Thank you so much, and let God continue to guide you. God continue to strengthen you in whatever thing we are doing. But we are there to see that who is the true Amazonian and who is truthful in this matter. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you. Dr. Munga, perhaps you want to react to that, then make that
Yes.
contribution, that economic thing, and then make your last statement.
Yes, I mean, people don't know about the history of the Inugu Highway. It was actually proposed by citizens of Cross River State, one of whom I probably know. So they insisted that they would like to have this highway paid for, so that it will allow them the Cross River, because there's a neighboring state in Nigeria, so they can do trade with us, and that was a very positive thing. Never in the mind of La Republic would they have been able to do that. And that brings us to another point about sabotage within the Biya regime. Biya's regime sabotages the economy and goes back to the world to ask for money. This beggar, he begs from the world, steals it at home. Even the little efforts that are being done in order to resuscitate the energy, his Bulu tribesmen come to destroy it. These are one of the so many examples that this government has used to destroy our own infrastructure. How come that having designed and built that road by Nigerians, they show up at the time when the economy is prosperous? All they want to do is to kill it. They killed Nanga Company, they killed Che Company, they killed Niba Motors, they killed Santa Coffee, they killed WADA, they killed UNVDA, they killed CDC, they killed the Toleti. What? How? They kill Cameroon Bank. What does it take? What can we show to Ambazonians that these people have done that is not all towards destroying the little that we have? And they keep going to the international community asking for more money, and then when a drop of it gets home, all they do is to steal it. And they do that with the blessing of top Ambazonians. I talked to you about 3.5 billion francs CFA stolen by Peter Mafani Musonge. I told you how they destroyed Cameroon Bank. And it's the scenario over and over again. Look, if you're a carnivore, you end up eating your own kids. That's what I have to tell La Republique of Cameroon. Because eventually, they'll be doing that to their own economy the moment we leave. Because they're so used to corrupting and destroy things people are trying to put together instead of encouraging it. You tell me any business that has survived in the past 61 years in Amazonia. Nothing. It goes even to schools. Ombe that used to be a technical school, now they're here, they're only teaching French and I don't know what. Or every school that has to be teaching French. That's all we know today in Amazonia. The good schools that used to train our technicians. That is the Amazonia that we want to rescue from these savages. And I keep on saying it. You cannot be a government that destroys the economy. The computer firm that this gentleman wanted to build up in about 20, 30 years ago, it was destroyed. The moment they see that you're going to make money, they will come and destroy it. That's La Republique for you. And these are people who think they have to be in government, and after that, they transfer power to their sons and their grandsons and their great-grandsons. Ambazonia, we cannot let that happen. We cannot let that happen. Go see Cameroon Airlines. Where is it? And people don't know that Cameroon Airlines was created by Ambazonians. It used to be called Cameroon Air Transport. These are people where, when we had independence and we're creating all this infrastructure, the French were still discriminating against them. They were telling them that you don't have to see either a black man or a dog in restaurants. In French Cameroon, by the French. And that is what is going on till today. We cannot let that happen. And I hope we have educated Ambazonians and the world of what is happening in our country. Over to you, Paddy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much there, Dr. Mungwa. We actually facing some few challenges here, but it was a great time with you. Like I promised, I'm going to leave you just to keep you attuned to what is happening. I'll leave you with the president's message on Saturday, so you can get some more information as to the choices or as to why the government did what they did. And then you get yourself ready tomorrow to listen to the president that will be addressing the nation. One thing that we take home from today is the government position and the government resilience. We understand the gimmick, the plan to force us into negotiations as weak Ambazonia, but the government is determined and strategizing and re-strategizing to make sure that we keep on moving and moving strong. Stay tuned until tomorrow. Have a good night.
Dear Ambazonians, let me begin by acknowledging my hardworking Vice President, a patriot of the struggle, Mr. F.Asce, the Speaker of the Interim House of Representatives, the Right Honorable Dr. Winnie Lobati, Mrs. Dorothy Mungwa, Chairlady of the Ambazonia Ethics Committee, and Barrister Besia Timothy, Chairman of the Judicial Council, and all my secretaries of state here present, all members of government from all levels and tiers of the interim government, dear chairs of counties and LGs, fellow Ambazonians, I thank you all for honoring this invitation to this special draft, the federal draft, after the recess following the marathon nationwide county-by-county draft. Your presence here tonight shows your readiness to show up when duty calls, especially in turbulent times like these in our liberation war. We are gathered here to show our oneness and defiance in the face of challenges and to reassure our people, especially our Ambazonia Restoration Forces, the ARFs, defending our vulnerable population facing the wrath of La République du Cameroon's genocide on them in the home front. For the more than 50,000 compatriots killed, some burnt alive, some gunned down in their sleep, thousands shot at point-blank range while going about their daily activities, and for our valiant ARFs who fell in the line of fire in defense of homeland, we honor you all. A minute of silence, please. May the revolutionary path, you, our heroes and heroines, watered with your precious blood, continuously spur us never to relent until we liberate our homeland. Fellow warriors, there comes a season when we must be strategic, demonstrate greater mastery of our art as revolutionaries. Having prosecuted this devoir collectively for more than 5 years, we have gleaned many a lesson, not only from the weaknesses of our enemy, but also from our own shortcomings as a movement. We have had to progressively evaluate our methodologies, our strategies, our structures, and our operations in terms of our strengths and opportunities. This is and has been necessary because of the ever-changing landscape of our liberation war. Our core enemies, La République du Cameroon, have now doubled down on a strategy of viciously targeting our people at home and our support structures abroad. They are aided by anti-revolutionaries amongst us, one Cameroon traders, and some hired Ambazonian Confucianists bankrolled by the CPDM Esingan Mafia. These agents of La République du Cameroon have made our task more challenging. We are using one hand to fend them off. These internal saboteurs have chosen to crash the same plane we are all in, claiming they are fighting against one Dr. Sako. We are using the other hand to fight and win our existential war against all external criminal forces of La République who are steadily mauling down our people with impunity. This is way down on our counties and LGS alone without the direct support of the interim government. We want to play a more direct role in terms of resource mobilization and management for a more efficient and robust coordination of operations on the home front. We are also hoping to drive in more resources into the struggle and so revitalize communication, fund targeted diplomacy, and carry on with the judicial prosecution of La République du Cameroon's criminal regime around the world. Dear compatriots, let me use this opportunity to appreciate those that have chipped in to the Legal Defense Support Fund for our compatriots who have been indicted in the U.S. federal courts. The all for one for all mantra, which has been our rallying chant from the beginning of this struggle, is now tested in the courts of America by some who are determined to mischaracterize our liberation quest as a criminal enterprise. The enemy, La République du Cameroon's genocidal apologists and sunbirds, have taken up vuvuzelas to pronounce verdicts on corrupt media towers in Yaoundé, even when the trial of our comrades have not yet started, true to the nature of their very ill-conceived legal system, which presumes everyone guilty until proven innocent. Rest assured, friends and relatives of our indicted comrades, that under my leadership, we are keeping no stone unturned legally to make sure your loved ones, our brave compatriots, are vindicated in the American courts of law, which is light years away from the kangaroo courts our people have been subjected to by our colonial annexationist genocidal dictatorial regime of La République du Cameroon since 1961. My fellow comrades, in every disappointment there is an appointment. The verdict from this lawsuit on our comrades may just be the appointment of destiny we have been longing for to further legitimize and publicize our liberation cause that will exact justice to these 21st century genocide perpetrators hiding in Yaoundé. This is an opportunity for us to expose the horrendous atrocity crimes that the evil genocidal regime of ailing nonagenarian dictator Paul Biya has been committing on our people. This war criminal has held us in a chokehold for 40 of the 61 years of brutal annexation and colonization. That all will be brought to light in an arena of utmost influence, the US court and public opinion. A Pandora box has been opened, and the cankerworm of extreme evil that has escaped the scrutiny of justice will now be exposed for the world to see. I hope the US court, in its judgment, will urge the US government to call for a fact-finding mission to the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia in order to ascertain the true perpetrators and enablers of war crimes in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. In a couple of days, President Joe Biden of the United States of America will be hosting leaders of Africa during the US-Africa Leadership Summit scheduled from the 13th to the 15th of December 2022. Amongst those invited is the 90-year-old bloodthirsty dictator of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Biya, who has ruled his country, French Cameroon, for 40 years with gross abuses of human rights, and he is responsible for the gruesome 6-year-old genocide on the people of Ambazonia, the former British Southern Cameroons, since 2017. Just imagining that Paul Biya will be in the White House among civilized leaders gives me nightmares, to say the least. Fellow Ambazonians, some people called us to get our position on the need for another protest march in Washington, D.C. to coincide with Paul Biya's meeting at the White House. As a soldier, you are like a farmer. You chose when and where to plant profitably. We also know that the world is not ruled by sympathy. It is governed by interest. We therefore must play by the rules, not by our rules. I don't think we cannot go out for another protest march at this time. I don't think so. I think, however, that recycling our unfruitful protest marches of 2017 and 18 cannot be our winning strategy at this time. We should opt for a smarter way to invest our time and resources. Besides, La République du Cameroon has a vibrant Biya Must Go brigade in the diaspora called BAS, headed by La République du Cameroon citizens. Let them go to DC and show their hate and rejection of their monster of a president. Then the green, red, yellow Ambazonians may also go and join them. We of the third option have another fight. It is not against Paul Biya, because we are not fighting for regime change in La République du Cameroon. Our fight is for the recognition of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. America is free to recognize La République du Cameroon or Paul Biya, but they should also recognize the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. That is our fight at the interim government. To deny us recognition, the enemy is trying to cast Amazonia as a criminal enterprise and not as a genuine liberation movement. The Esingan cabal has engineered the indictment and arrest of 3 of our comrades in the US, trying to steal a judgment from the court against Amazonia in favor of La République du Cameroon, then use it to sway American and other international opinions against Amazonia. The fight is on in court in Kansas City and in Minneapolis as we speak. That is where we should show up in our numbers, if at all, not in DC. Qualitative legal defense requires huge sums of money. For example, it costed us $14,000 to respond to charges brought against the former dismissed Secretary of State for Communication, Chris Ano, in California court. This time we have 3 comrades to defend through trial. And all I hear is, let's go and march in Washington, as if the State Department or Congress will then call the courts to ask them to free our people in response to a march in one street corner in Washington, D.C. Sometimes in our desperation, we want to be seen to be doing something, even when we know it amounts to doing nothing. Some people, out of sheer destitution, want a share of what they perceive as the spotlight through some mere positioning, while real actors like the interim government get the spotlight not by parading a lie, but by doing what it takes to force the spotlight on us by way of our success. Here is my take now on the issue of beer in the White House, amongst other African heads of state. If Paul Biya, who only yesterday refused to receive many diplomats in a today on the issue of Amazonia, suddenly can fly to DC to attend President Biden's invitation, why don't we rather insist on telling President Biden what he must tell Paul Biya? Yes, the security in Washington, D.C. will be tighter. You will not be allowed anywhere near the White House. A demonstration limited to one street corner in Washington, D.C., based on a non-local issue like Amazonia in America, with no significant press coverage, will be at best a meet and greet exercise with no impact on what Biden tells or does not tell Paul Biya. Instead, we can and should use this moment to call our senators and congressmen political influencers to communicate their disapproval of the presence of the world's #1 genocidaire in the White House. It is time we mobilize Amazonian Americans who are even registered Democrats to reach out to the Democratic Party's power brokers to ask President Biden to rebuke Paul Biya, and go on Twitter and tell the powers that be that our votes as Amazonian Americans also count in America. Then advise the Biden administration to use this occasion to tell Paul Biya what the French will not tell him. We must stop making noise on street corners, recycling failed strategies. It is time we constitute ourselves into a 50,000+ strong active voting bloc, consequential enough in local politics, and our demonstrations will then be able to sway political power. For now, we must leverage what we have handy freely, and that is all the elected congressmen and women in various states who are moved by interest in our cause to help us push the political establishment in Washington towards a more positive choice for Amazonia. I learned a lesson from one world champion who said, "When I was young, I fought for nothing on the streets. Now I fight for a crown in the ring. I don't fight and go back to my house with sores, empty-handed anymore." Dear Biden administration, our beloved Democratic Party in America, we, the people of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, are very disappointed with your choice of guest to the White House in the person of Paul Biya. Paul Biya is one of the worst dictators in the world today. The White House should not have spent a dime of our taxpayers' income on Paul Biya. He does not deserve a free meal ticket in the White House. He has the blood of 40,000 plus innocent Southern Cameroon citizens under his sleeves. Biya is a monster of a higher order than other leaders America will not receive in the White House today. Biya is worse than Kim Jong-un. Biya is worse than Saddam Hussein. Biya is worse than Idi Amin. Biya is worse than Ayatollah Khomeini. Biya is worse than Fidel Castro. Biya is the Adolf Hitler of Africa, and he is far worse than Vladimir Putin. If America should receive Biya and count him among the friends of America at this time, then America will have to apologize to a lot of leaders, past and present, who do not measure or did not measure up to the size of Biya's depravity. Dear ARFs, don't be afraid of those who can kill you but cannot kill Ambazonia. If death was a currency, all of us will be considered rich in death. We are all full of death in our accounts. Those who are hired to kill others are idiots. They think they will by so doing postpone their own D-Day. No. If you know you will eventually go to prison, please do not build ugly prisons because you want to punish your worst enemies. But know that when your time will come, that is where you too will go. Your death will be more painful and miserable thereafter. I have come to tell you, ARS, fear not. Ambazonia is our country. It is ours to win. Nothing. No one can take it from us, not even death. Let's win this war, whether on our feet or in our graves. Don't give up, General, Colonel, Captain, Foot Soldier. Don't give up, ARFs. Our hope is in you. Your enemies are many, but our victory is sure. When you wake up in the morning and you realize there is still breath in your nostrils, it means you have more hills to climb, some rivers to cross, and some ekelebes to take out. Let us reduce their number one by one every day until victory comes. The only day you have as a soldier is today. Fight as if there's no tomorrow. The number one law of self-defense is kill your enemy before he kills you. Your enemy is anyone who wants to kill you. I call on all Ambazonians to join the resistance actively. And I apologize for any wrongdoings to you by a genuine fighter. The pain inflicted on you by a so-called fighter, ARF, could be a mistake, but what La Republique has done to us for 61 years is not a mistake. Don't turn against the struggle. Join us to take out these ekelebes. We Ambazonians are all on the death row of La Republique. We cannot be deceived by a smile on the executioner's face to think he is now our friend. Henceforth, the ANSC has decided to reward every brigade that takes out a La République du Cameroon soldier or military vehicle. The draft today is going to empower ground operations. We are going to sponsor strategic federal projects across the national territory. We have to fund our Department of Special Operations and increase our subsidies to our hot zones. We want to better coordinate our ARF operations nationally in a manner that will expedite support to our front lines without bottlenecks. Our days ahead, having put behind us the distractions of spoilers and coup plotters, are brighter. Our diplomatic strides for recognition will intensify. The Swiss talks and all other mediated talks are still the only viable solutions left after the collapse of the Grand National Dialogue Canada edition. Let's give today and help the federal government to effectively plan and coordinate strategic special operations to boost self-defense in our counties from today. Long live our ARFs, viva the Federal Republic of Amazonia, and God bless our beautiful country.